shadows crawling in the bright daylight, voices twisted, feeding us the blight, telling stories that were never true. We fight to break on through. Lies are woven like a velvet chain, slick with power driving us insane. But the fire burns deep within our chests. We fight, we'll never rest. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth's a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we'll never rest. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth's a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we make our mark. They call us rebels, say we've lost our way, but freedom's blood, it fuels the fray. From the ashes comes a brighter light. We fight with all our might. See resolve in the roaring storm, breaking cages will rewrite the norm. No more silence, no more disguise. We fight with open eyes. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth's a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we'll never rest. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth's a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we make our mark. We make our mark.
This is just an unbelievable tragedy. And we have to remember that there are a couple of families who yesterday had the worst day of their lives, and it's not going to get much better from here because of what this evil person took from these families, which is these two beautiful kids. That's my first response to it. My second response to it is I'm praying every single day, multiple times a day, that while two deaths is tragic, 3 deaths is even more tragic, and I hope it stays at 2, because there still are some kids who seem to be in pretty serious condition at the hospital, so we're praying for their swift recovery. And I think on the broader stuff, I mean, look, clearly this person was a mentally deranged human being. Clearly it was a transgender individual. We're going to learn a lot more, and I think the FBI and local authorities, I got to try to get to the bottom of this, but you don't go and shoot up innocent children unless you are a clearly screwed up person. We're so soon after this tragedy that I think that it would be nice if we as a country could unite, say a prayer for these innocent victims, say a prayer for the kids who are still recovering, that they make a full recovery, focus on the investigation and getting to the bottom of this thing, and not immediately make it about politics. And my final point on this is when I see far-left politicians say, how dare you offer thoughts and prayers? You need action. I don't care about your prayers. I care about what you're going to do to prevent this from happening. Why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't you pray for the speedy recovery of these kids who literally just got shot yesterday, while at the same time committing to making sure this doesn't happen again, or that it happens as infrequently as possible? I don't think there's anything inconsistent about saying a prayer to God for these innocent, beautiful kids, while also thinking constructively about how we're going to prevent this from happening the next time.
All right. What's up, guys? Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Eric and I are on. I see you guys making fun of my sound because I said we were fixing the sound earlier. Were you able to hear it? Oh yeah, sound is good. Very funny, guys. Ha ha ha. Everybody's got jokes tonight. What's going on? My bald friend is with me today. You guys remember Eric? He wanted to jump on because things have been interesting. Things have been really interesting. And ramping up, as we've been talking about. I wanted to share that clip. I know that many of you did not watch last night. It was members live, but obviously we talked about the horrific shooting last night and kind of what I think it represents, and a turning point for just the spiritual battle we're in, and what I think things are coming to light in very interesting ways. So we're going to talk about that tonight, what that looks like. I'm going to show you guys more examples of them just showing us exactly who they are, and why I believe the great exposure, the great it's part of an awakening for the people to finally see what's happening. Part of it is, um, I think there's a spiritual aspect of God exposing them, but I also think they're just showing themselves now in desperation because they know their time is short. So we're going to talk about that tonight. But Eric, welcome, man. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Cool. And Eric and I, we're gonna go into this together. First, as always, guys, please like, share, subscribe. I appreciate it very much. If you're on X, hit that repost button. Greatly appreciate it. So smash that like, and then going forward, let's call out some peeps over here on X, and actually not on X. I can't see who's watching on X. On Rumble and YouTube, Armand is numero uno tonight. What's up, buddy? Diana Pants back in here. Country Computers. James Lee, what's going on? Stony Bones, Stephanie Bridges. Let's see. Jerry D, what's up, man? It's good to see you. It's been a while. Richie Rich, DJ Yukon. Lock Up. Vin Man, Just Mike, Stephen Cromer, Charlie M, Dave R. Frank Anastasio, Alice Fordham, good to see you. Troy Mann in the house. Shogun, Alan Krentz, not pleased with me. Why? You want to care to mention, Alan? LMI says evil is evil, treated such no excuses. Amen to that. Absolutely. RK Opal, what's going on? Kathy, how are you? Good to see you. And so many good people in here tonight. Love it. AJ Trader, what's going on? Getting home from work. That's late. Anyways, I don't see anybody. I know Rumble is just the chat function is not as good, but if you guys do want to make the effort to get in the chat on Rumble, please do. I'll call you out. So, anyways, let's get going here. So, Eric, first
Yes.
things first. I just want to. How are you seeing things right now?
Kind of similar to you. There's obviously we have an enemy. The enemy is evil. The enemy is willing to sacrifice children to get their agenda pushed forward, but they're not going to win. So we
Amen to that.
got to keep fighting, but we're going to win it.
That's right. Christina, good to see you. LMI says there's no such thing as senseless acts of violence. Evil is evil, period. I love it. Absolutely. I don't know, country. I haven't heard anything about Kansas. All right, let's start getting into it though. So this post today, and I thought this was just perfectly said by, of all people, Roseanne Barr. Let me. Is it showing, guys? Oh man. The only thing with going back to the old, here we go. Oh, going back to the old way of doing things. There it is on Rumble. Is that Rumble Studios? We've learned in the past isn't the best. But let me enlarge this here. All right, I have to do it in order to have guests on, but this will work. All right, so Roseanne, who when I was in the '90s watching Roseanne out there, expected her to be like one of the most awesome people on the side of right, especially in the celebrity world that we have. But mysterious, crazy things happen, and here we are. So Roseanne calls it out and says, "We're in a spiritual war, all of us. It's not divided by religion; it's divided by love and hate." Which I partially agree with that. But overall, I generally agree with her sentiment. She says Jews, Christians, Muslims, everyone's good and of God must come together to root out the extremists in each of our groups. People who push hatred and spread vile satanic messaging need to be ostracized and shamed. We must look inward now and begin a purge of MK Ultra, anti-God, Nazi mind control. Pretty bold words coming from Roseanne. And I know the members, they saw my live last night. For those of you who didn't, I believe with this shooter yesterday, it's it's kind of time to draw the line in the sand and stop. We won such a massive victory last November, and we've won the ultimate battle in the culture war. But now is actually the hard part, because now we're in charge and we have to see it through, because they won't give us any quarter. They won't give us an inch if they come back into power. And so our job now is to keep the victory and make it a total victory. And that's not through violence, but it is through calling everything as it is, exposing it all, and bringing justice where justice needs to be brought. And so that's why, I personally, last night, I'm tired of kids being killed. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm done. And so it's I've done a lot to try to expose and educate, but it's also coming time to be a little more on the offensive, and in the battle of words and the battle of ideas, because we cannot let any of this stand. And as the reason I played that JD Vance clip at the beginning is because I wanted to display the fact that our leaders right now understand prayer. They understand the power of prayer and the need for it, and they're not mocking prayer the way the left is, and people who identify on the left as communist, whatever it is, and some of them are even libertarians, God bless them. But what we really need is we have to deal with this evil. We just do. We have to end it. I mean, look at this. This is the kind of stuff people are sharing right now that's just been coming out, but it's like, this is all over Reddit. I hate to say this, but targeting white Christian churches may be the only way to get real gun reform legislation. Nothing else is working. This is the kind of stuff that's, they're coming out. They're coming out of the dark now. They were pretending for years that they were going to play nice. They were pretending for years that, they were listening to the people. They're the party, the side of democracy. And now they're showing us that they're actually this mental illness they're allowing. It's all about destruction. It's all about tyranny. It's all about state control. It's all anti-God, anti-morals, anti-traditions, anti-freedom. You throw anything good in there, they're against it. So, Eric, you can feel free to jump in anytime, man. Since I brought you on.
Yeah. I agree. It's time to go on the offensive. It's interesting, when you say we're tired of the kids killed, because that's exactly what the other side says in their ideas to push gun control, right? Mm-hmm. It's like enough children dead. It's like, man, if we could just get them to see the truth and stop watching CNN, we would we'd have millions more in our army in America. You know what I mean?
I mean, I totally agree with you. If you're just talking about voters, regular people who might be a little propagandized, but I'm at the point where I know, and it was a small group, relatively speaking, of people who actually have known what they're doing. But I'm beginning to believe more and more that it's more people know what they're doing, and I'm talking about in the media sphere and the political sphere, like people who have influence and are in charge of things.
Oh, those people know exactly. I'm talking about like the normies that watch these news shows and don't know. There's probably still people in America who don't know yet that it was a trans person.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. In fact, the New York Times, USA Today, they all ran stories today on the shooting, and not one of them mentioned that fact, which is disgusting.
But
and that's why we have to get louder about it,
Yeah, we do. And I think we've come so far to, like, I don't even know where we are in tipping the scales, but you go back 10 years and so many people right now know that it was a trans shooter versus 10 years ago, they would still not know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, X has provided that. The fact that we have President Trump in charge now is helping with that. So but I think on my side, what I'm also trying to communicate is the fact that, growing up, and Eric, you'll identify this as this, but growing up Christian, growing up conservative, traditionally conservative politically, we always played nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We always gave the benefit of the doubt. We always were like, well, we'll win the war of ideas over time. But it's so bad now that I don't think that's an option anymore. I really don't. I think we have to be okay with the fact we need to be offensive. And I mean offensive as in, like, sometimes it's going to shake up their worldview and hurt their feelings a little bit and upset them. Like, I just don't care anymore. The playing nice got us to this point where we let so much happen on our watch, and good regular Americans, people with good values, hard workers, mostly people of faith, especially Christian in America, we have been the majority and the major majority for
Yeah.
all the last 50 years while all this was happening. So what's the excuse? We honestly don't have one, except for the fact we just didn't know what was going on. But we played nice every time there were warning signs. We played nice. And they don't care about niceness. They don't care. They will go after our kids. They will go after our churches. They will steal our jobs and our futures. They don't care. And we have to stop caring now. That's where it's at. Like, and I don't mean about life and stuff like that. Obviously, nothing I say condones violence. That is never what I'm talking about. I mean, in the battle of ideas, and calling things out, and saying things the way they should be said in front of people. I mean, we were told never, don't talk politics, faith, or, banking at the table, when that's exactly what we should have been talking about.
Those are the most important things to talk
Exactly.
about.
And that's why they don't want us. I mean, look at this. Like, today, the Biden's FDA knew the puberty blockers were linked to increased risk of depression, suicidality, and yet they still recommended approving them for kids. This is the evil we're up against. This is an email that, proves it right here. It says, most of these patients had CPP, but a handful were transgender kids using kids off label. We found increased risk of depression, suicidality, as well as increased seizure risk. And we issued SLCs, the entire class, for these. There's definitely a need for these drugs to be approved for gender transition. They knew it. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knew it except for the people who are victims of these propaganda campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's normal and or in charge, I mean, this is nothing new.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't know. We have to be proactive too at calling for justice in these areas too, where we were before. And in many areas, I've been a little more libertarian in some areas, especially when it comes to guns and stuff like that. And I still am, but I do like the mental illness factor. It just there has to be a consideration here, because this is getting to, because these people are all on the watch list. And I know there's like the CIA aspect, the MK Ultra stuff as well. But we just, I guess what I'm trying to say in all of this is that if you're not angry, are you even alive at this point? Like, what do you care about? Because this is our future. We're talking about our children and our country.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that we were in the majority years ago, but I feel like as the conservative movement in America, even though we were in the majority, we still had like a minority mentality, because the minority is so loud, right?
Yeah.
And they also had the mouthpieces of the media and the Democrat Party and all that. So I think what we need is like a mindset shift. Like you say,
Absolutely.
Go on the offensive. We need to, kind of throw our weight around a little bit, because MAGA is huge, right?
Yeah.
and we can't be passive. We need to
Mhm.
push through everything that we want in the
Yes.
next 12 years.
100%. Oh, yeah, and I mean, as much as we can up front too, because even though
Yeah.
I believe that JD Vance is as teed up as anybody's ever been teed up to take over the next. Nothing is guaranteed, and it has to be that we make sure it happens. So if for God forbid, some terrible happens too, like to him or to anybody who'd be a good candidate for us in 2028. Just God forbid that happens and there's some rhino that comes back in. We have to make sure as much happens now in this next 3.5 years as possible.
Yeah,
Uh,
and to your point the other night about the culture, I think the battle this 4 years is to wake
mhm.
everybody up so that
Oh
nobody
yeah,
can fleece us again.
I think it's waking up, and I also think it's the justice aspect. I really do, and stuff like this makes me think that here's a this is somebody was asking me about this the other day. Trump met with Bill Gates, and this is what is believed to come out of this. But President Trump met with Bill Gates for 3 hours this week, their second meeting since the election. Bill Gates has been cutting his funding to the left-wing groups that fund NGOs causing chaos. Bill Gates was reportedly told he'll be charged with RICO if he continues. Now, I can't confirm this, but a lot of the stuff that trickles out on X tends to be true. And when Trump's having closed door meetings and you're actually seeing these people act differently after, that's exactly what I believe is happening.
Yeah, I think he just put some papers on the table, and they see all
Mm-hmm.
the dirt he's got on them, and they capitulate.
Oh yeah, I think he just flopped it right out there. It was like, look, Bill, look at everything I have on you. I know your deal. I know what you've been doing. I know your ties. And I think, this takes me back to a Q post, but it basically said that if that many of the people who've been involved in this stuff will be cut deals. And the reason is because, well, there's lots of reasons for it. I'm not going to go into all of them, but there's very solid reasons for it. But the worst of the worst will be gone after, and you see them building like the RussiaGate case where they'll go after Clinton and Comey and Clapper, Obama. Like the worst of the worst are going to get theirs. But then there's a lot of people behind the scenes who are funding stuff or a part of it, but not maybe their hands weren't directly in it, but they were doing things from afar. I think they'll get deals, and their deal is going to be you're going to stop everything. You're going to it's almost like a house arrest. And I think that's kind of some of the stuff we're seeing.
Yeah, they're gonna have to tell everything they know about everyone else.
Yes, that's the other part. They have to be a part of helping. They have to join our side. Uh, Tom FP asks, how can America not afford to hire one armed security guard per school? Oh, we can, but teachers unions fight it because they're extremely liberal. Major cities that are all run by Democrats, they'll fight it because they're like gun free zones. It's the politics of it all. And I spoke about this the other night, but they want the crime to continue because they want to be able to keep us in fear. It's that Stockholm syndrome thing where they can manipulate you by keeping you always in fear and always on edge. That's part of it. They want the crime to be rampant. And then they also want to keep using it as justification because if everybody was armed, there would be very little gun crime. It's just a fact. They know it too. But by keeping good people unarmed and then allowing these shootings to keep happening, they have a way to manipulate people's emotions, and they're never going to stop going after the Second Amendment. You better believe they will never stop going after it as long as they exist, because that is the greatest threat to them. It's a reason we've never become the crap countries that the UK has become, or Australia, or you name it, any of these other Western countries that were in some ways almost as good as we were 100 years ago in a lot of ways. Great empires at one point, great societies, all falling apart. And one of the reasons is their people couldn't fight back like we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the Islam stuff. I did talk about it last night, my members live though, guys. Vinman says we have to attack and accuse Democrats every day. Heck, all the Democrats know that 80% of females coming from South America get raped, yet they encourage them to come. Accuse Danes of hating Latina females. That's absolutely true. The trafficking, the horrific stuff across the border, they knew all of it. Did you know? I mean, they found the Biden administration lost those 300,000 plus kids, and they were well aware of it. They know where they're going. You know,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
because they're involved with the trafficking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's part of funding them, as sick as that is. Here's a great clip I wanted to play tonight from Gutfeld. He really calls it out like it is. And we're starting to see more of this, which is making me very happy. But let's just listen to him break this down real quick.
Thoughts and prayers. That is all they are offering.
Thoughts and prayers just aren't enough here right now. Because these kids were
Makes me
actually
so
praying.
sick when they say this.
At the end of the day, thoughts and prayers have led us to having more of these deaths, more of these shootings.
Keep us in your thoughts and prayers, but also keep us in the thoughts for action.
That's sick. For just real quick, how sick is it? They're going after people praying. It's disgusting.
These people should be arrested.
This is so sick, and you can see it's a talking point because they're all doing it.
Yeah, it's coming from somewhere. There should be an investigation where these people get these talking points from, because we've all seen the videos where they all say the same exact thing. Why is that not investigated? That should be criminal.
I think Trump is trying to, the way he's going after a lot of these major, ABC, CBS, NBC with these lawsuits and stuff. I think he's trying to break that open somehow. And in a way it is being exposed. I mean, everybody who pays attention on X or anything knows this. You've seen those big clips where they put together like 50 clips and they're all saying the same thing at the same time, so we know it. But yeah, how do they do it? I don't know, but they do have what's called like morning meetings. A lot of them. Now, yesterday, this came together really quick after the shooting, which that's a whole nother thing in itself. Did they know the shooting was coming?
Ready to go. Absolutely.
You see the cheese curds thing at where the guy, his handle on X was like cheese curds. And then yesterday, Tim Walz said something like nothing better than pizza and cheese curds, something like that. And people are like, was that the call to go for it?
He's kind of right about that.
Deactivated, pretty crazy stuff. But let's keep watching.
Okay, Greg, I'm going to go to you because when this all was happening, I thought, wow, okay, this feels like something Greg either predicted or could have told you was going to happen again.
Yes. This is why none of these a-holes can lecture anyone on compassion. The most compassionate people on this planet are trying to stop the trans delusion. Mm-hmm. The least compassionate are the people in the media, academia, and politicians who enabled this hysteria of horror. What is so glaring about the trans cult, apparently your identity is the only thing that matters until you do something awful. Then it's the least important variable. Then you look at everything else. You talk about guns. But you suddenly, it's all of a sudden like, oh, we can't talk about that. What was it? The other trans shooter that they actually hid her identity. In this manifesto that this creep wrote, he said he was tired of being trans and that he had wished he had never brainwashed himself. What more do you need straight from the monster's mouth? Politicians, activists, teachers, you built this. You could have listened to the warnings. We were talking about this on this show for years. You amplified a hysterical, literally hysterical phenomenon that was going no place good. You created a poisonous program that twisted young minds for destruction, a nihilistic place to be when you deny biology and they have nowhere to go. So all of these media arguments, what you're seeing there among those people, it's to escape their own culpability in the reality that they created. So forget the layer of mental illness and gun control. The origin of the evil lies in the creation of a mindset that indulged a delusional self, ruining connections with fellow human beings. So that trans, by ascribing extreme aggrieved mentality, then gets directed against society. So this person feels justified in killing children. His killing resulted from that ideology. And if you don't believe that, you're one dumb asshole. Excuse me.
Man, we need more of that.
Whoa.
We need more of that. The rage, that the righteous rage coming out that actually is calling things as as they are. Well done for Gutfeld. And I'm seeing this spreading. I really think yesterday was a tipping point for a lot of people who are playing nicer. And this guy never plays nice, but he's going up another notch. And it's Milo, who I always am very entertained by. But he calls it out, and I think he's right on here. He says, to save your family and your society, you must fight. We are up against Satanists. Atheists have no defense against the devil. As a matter of survival, you have no choice but to embrace our Lord. And then he's Catholic, so he says go to a Catholic church. But do they say we might all make it? But this first part is absolutely the truth. Save your family and society. You must fight. We're up against Satanists. And that's absolutely true. And, these people I've talked about before, when we talk about the Cabal, they're not atheist or agnostic or a lot of the things they claim to be. They do have beliefs, and there's two trends of Satanism. There's actual worship of Satan itself and Baphomet and all this stuff, and then there's another cult that calls themselves Satanists, which basically just worship humans as but the ultimate power humans, and the Ubermensch, kind of like what Nietzsche would talk about. They believe in that, and they believe in Satan is like a figurative head. But these people are all together. They have no value for actual human life. They're just trying to achieve ultimate power on their own, and both are ultimately, in a spiritual sense, satanic. And this is what we're up against. And yesterday just displayed it more. And then for me, the shooting is bad enough. I mean, that's enough right there. The third major shooting by a trans person against Christian children. But for me, they went a deeper level when they started attacking and mocking prayer, because that was a direct mock of faith in general.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Gutfeld's. I mean, normally he's funny, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he just went straight for it. He is
Yep.
pissed.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people pissed. Matt Walsh had a good. I'm seeing this anger come up out of MAGA, which is really good, because MAGA is, and I think it's the greatest movement in American history since the Revolutionary War. I really do. I think it's about getting back to basics, getting back to family, community, and freedom, and just like what's available for Americans, and not having a giant government or elites empowered by the government to rob us. And that's a powerful, powerful thing. But the one thing I haven't seen as much from MAGA, it's only been in pockets, is this recognition of how evil the other side truly has become. And not everybody on the other side. That's not what I mean. But I mean from the top, who it comes down for. And not just the elites, not just the cabal billionaires, but actually the people in media and the vast majority of Democratic politicians now, and Rhino Republican politicians. They've fully embraced evil. It's not just disagreements. And this is starting to wake people up to that, I really believe.
Yeah, it's not just, I don't know. To me, the Democrat Party is not just a political party anymore. It's just force for evil and destruction in our society.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people are seeing that. I think that's why Trump won so big in this election, is people, they crossed the line and people said, whatever I believe about the Republican Party, I'm not with this.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it's not, because I would say a lot of disagreements politically, I can look at a libertarian, the vast majority of them, be like, you're a patriot, but I disagree with you. Or like a traditional conservative, more traditional Republican type. I can be like, I get you. I was once there. I believe you love our country. We have different ways of seeing this stuff. I can see all that. But you're right. When it comes to the Democratic ideology now, the full embrace of destroying the nuclear family, the full embrace of destroying identity of children and their bodies, the full embrace of death, the culture of death. I mean, look at this today. I mean, RFK, he's out exposing big pharma, and he's going today, and they found this stuff on the CDC, and I'll let him say it, but it's just crazy. This is all coming to light as he fired this woman.
Today on CDC's website right now, they list the 10 top the 10 greatest advances in medical science, and one of them is abortion. Another is fluoridation, another is vaccines. So we need to look at the priorities of the agency. If there's really a deeply, deeply embedded, I would say, malaise at the agency. And we need strong leadership that will go in there and that will be able to execute on President Trump's broad ambitions.
So even our CDC, our health, Center of Disease Control, health, the people in charge of our health, out of 10 breakthroughs in science, 3 of them, they list abortion as one of the breakthroughs in health. That's straight up death. Fluoride I'm the word's escaping me right now, but it messes with your brain. Neurotoxin. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a
I've
neurotoxin.
deep dived on fluoride, and I used to be in the water industry, and it is all bad.
It's
and
terrible.
There's no justification for it at all.
None. And then obviously vaccines, which we're on our own, exposure on that front. And Callie Means, who's in the health industry and works with RFK, who they really went after, him and his sister, when RFK was working with them. But he writes this: we're facing a population collapse, and the CDC lists smaller family size as one of the most important scientific achievements in modern history.
What?
Right here. Family planning. Access to family planning and contraceptive services is altered social and economic force for women. This roles for women. This is they're speaking of this in a good way. Family plannings provide health benefits such as smaller family size. That is in our CDC documents. How disgusting is that?
Wow.
That it just tells you it is a culture of death. It is a culture of hatred of humanity. These people hate everybody but themselves.
Because the less people there are, the easier they are to control. That's their agenda.
The easier they are to control. And they also, they want to hoard the wealth. I mean, we know from, numerous writings, but the Georgia Guidestones are the most famous one, where they had listed on there that the ideal population in the world is 500 million. That's roughly 90% less than what we have now. And then you look at everything they push, the abortion, they unleashed COVID upon us. They, the COVID machine. I gotta be careful. I'm on YouTube, but all this stuff, it's all death. And we're not, they're poisoning our water. They're poisoning our food. Men are, they're finding all the plastics in the testicles. Our testosterone levels are down 75% in the last 50 years. It's harder and harder to have children. They've convinced women to wait, told them that you can have a career and have just as full a life without a family, which is simply not true. Not that there's anything wrong with a woman having a career. You can do both. But they've convinced women to wait so long that many women are getting into their late 30s and 40s now, to the point where they can't have children anymore, or it's much more difficult. And they're only having 1 or 2 children, if they even are fortunate enough to have them when they're ready. We've been lied to. Everything is lied to us, and our environment, and it's been the slow boil. We've been the frogs in the slow water, and now it's all coming out. But the more it comes out, the darker it is, man.
Yeah, people need to wake up. They need to be able to see it for what it is. And I've seen since Trump came in office, the exposure has been on fast forward.
Yes.
Versus the previous 8 years, even. It's really a lot of it's kind of a slow boil in reverse, because you can't just dump everything on people. It takes time to digest. So I feel like issue by issue, topic by topic, they're pushing things out there to warm the American people up for the complete destruction of the enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I believe that in America, probably 70 to 85%, maybe even 90% of people in their jobs, regular on the street, if they had the right information, they could at least make the determination between good and evil. And,
Yeah.
and I
And
think
the ability to believe it, which can be
yes.
difficult for certain people when you've been
Mhm.
indoctrinated so much.
Yes, I totally agree. And that's why I don't think like this is impossible. And there's, that's why I don't black pill. So, and I
It's
drives me nuts.
inevitable.
Yeah, that inevitable thing drives me nuts when people are just like, well, they're all in control and this is just temporary. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, we're here in the first place because of the internet and the ability to communicate unlike we've ever had before. That's all a blessing. And I mean, there's obviously bad stuff that's come out of the internet too, but we're here because of that, because the communication and technology of the internet and everything has allowed us to expose a great deal and wake up in the first place. So that's why we're even here at all. I mean, we want to think about this. Like, by the time this video has fully run its course, there'll probably be anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 people that watch it. In the 90s, you might have had somebody create a VHS tape and they had all this knowledge of something, and maybe 20 people watched it and everybody else thought they were crazy. Like, what are you getting into?
Yeah.
And that's not anymore. Like, there are thousands of people watching like my videos, and I'm small, but there are millions of people watching between Alex Jones, who I obviously have my issues with Alex, but he has exposed some good stuff. There's a lot of good people getting out there exposing stuff. The whole like X22 report and Q, and even like Tucker Carlson has interviewed some amazing people who have spread a lot. What was that?
And we know that guy was awesome.
Oh, and we know.
There's
I don't know.
And we know. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know him, but there's lots of good people is my point. Praying Medic is one. They've exposed so much. And this was like just a few people back in the past. It's funny because my dad was a Episcopal priest, and he would always pick up this guy who was mentally handicapped on his way to church on Sundays. This guy lived on his own, but and that was back when barely anybody was autistic and everything. But this guy was he was either autistic or something else. But he was able to live on his own with like government help. And my dad would pick him up. His name was Joe, and we talk like this. But all he ever wanted to talk about was conspiracies. And he gave my dad like the craziest tapes. Like when Obama was first elected, he gave my dad this VHS, and it was like I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like Obama's face was on the cover like a demon. And I was just like, what is going on here? Like my dad was like, I watched some of this stuff to entertain Joe. He's really into it. He's like, and my dad was just like, it sounds crazy. He's like, but when you watch it, some of it's very interesting. And I was like, oh my God, Dad. I was like 22-year-old who thought I knew everything at that time. I was like, come on, Dad, that's crazy. But anyways, this guy was like, and now I wish I'd had those tapes. I'm like, how much did they know back then that I didn't know? But this small group of people circulating tapes like that knew. And so I think things are getting better, and we're actually reaching the end of a system where we were much more enslaved or indentured servants, so to speak, than we thought we were, than we ever dreamed. And we just don't even know what it's like to truly live in a system of freedom. We thought we did, but we don't. And I think that's actually coming. So that's why I'm so excited for what's ahead. But obviously we're in the battle right now.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I think I think that it's inevitable that we win. What do you call that? White pills?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I mean, we have stuff like this, like, and you know, one of the reasons I think Trump partnered with RFK was because so much of this is in our health stuff. And so here's RFK directly speaking about SSRIs and the shooting and stuff. This is him with Governor Abbott from Texas.
Places like Uvalde have experienced one of the worst mass shootings in history. The CDC has previously been responsible for studying gun violence. A lot of those programs have been cut now. Would you still consider gun violence a public health crisis? And who's going to be?
I certainly consider mass shootings a health crisis, and we are doing for the first time real studies to find out what the etiology of that is. And we're looking for the first time at psychiatric drugs. You know, these kind of mass shooting, people have had guns in this country forever. When I was a kid, we had shooting clubs at our school. People, kids, my classmates, other people, would bring a .22 rifle with their guns to school and park it in the parking lot. Nobody was shooting. So there's never been a time in America, in the history of humanity, and people walked into a crowd, into a church or a movie theater or a school or a crowd of strangers and just started randomly shooting. It's happening in our country.
Yep.
It's not happening around the world. And there are many other countries that have comparable levels of guns that we have in this country. We had comparable levels in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and people weren't doing that. Something changed, and it dramatically changed human behavior. And one of the culprits we need to examine is whether the fact that we are the most over-medicated nation in the world. And a lot of those are psychiatric drugs that have black box warnings on them that warn of suicidal and homicidal ideation. So we are doing those studies right now for the first time, and we will have an answer.
I mean, when you hear stuff like that and you realize the miracle, and this is a miracle, guys, that Sparta, I see you over in Rumble, man. If you're the only one there, I still see you. It's an absolute miracle that RFK ended up in the Trump administration. It's a miracle because RFK was anti-Trump. He didn't hate Trump personally, but he couldn't stand what he stood for, blah, blah, blah. He bought a lot of the Democratic nonsense being on that side. But RFK is a true believer for good things. And I over the last 5 years since COVID, really fell in love with the guy and his belief systems. And I was like, man, I love this guy. Like, I was kind of hoping for a bit like a dream ticket of Trump and RFK Jr., but that was clearly never going to happen. But I really appreciate him. And then I had people like my wife who just like, if RFK had stayed in the presidential race, she would have voted for him. And I wouldn't have been upset about it. I would have been like, well, that sucks. Yeah. Like, because he speaks to so many people. And the Maha we talk about MAGA, the Maha movement is massive. Yeah. And then you see people like his running mate at the time, Nicole Shanahan, who I called out as a super hardcore liberal when she first joined. Well, since she joined and she saw behind the scenes of campaign, she's now like a hardcore outspoken conservative, and she got baptized as a Christian last year. So you can't tell me God's not moving in these people. And you hear Kennedy now when he talks about Trump, he gets emotional. He's like, this man has done everything he promised he would. He's given me the opportunity to do what I always prayed for, that God would give me the opportunity. And you see this stuff, and I'm like, what a freaking miracle that God brought this man, because he is going to transform our health system, which is, Trump's dealing with the corruption side, the political side, the economy. He's fixing all that. And then we brought in, and my personal opinion, the best person in the world to fix our healthcare system. Like, what an absolute miracle. And like, I'm like, people are blackpilling? How? It's insane to me. It's insane.
Yeah. And not just RFK, all of the people that he put in place. It's an absolute dream team. Everybody's on point, and it's like I feel like compared to what the way that this country is going to be transformed over the next 3.5 years, we haven't even seen anything yet.
Yeah.
And yet so much has happened.
Absolutely. And I think too, this is Uncle Andy makes the point that if the Democrats actually allowed a primary, RFK could have been against Trump for the presidency, which is true. They shot themselves in the foot there. But I think there's something symbolic in the fact that a Kennedy joined Trump, because it was a Kennedy who was truly the last person, I think, who was trying to fully break the system. You know, I think Reagan wasn't fully a part of the system, but I think he was afraid to 100% go up against it. That's kind of where I've made my peace with Reagan, because he did some stuff that I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, God, I can't believe I used to like worship this guy. He made some egregious decisions that are still affecting us. But overall, I think Reagan wasn't one of them. I just think he didn't have what it took to go up against him. And
I don't think he had the support he needed to go to war against
that
him.
might have been part of it too. And you know, but Kennedy was going to. JFK was. He was, and that's why they killed him. And so, anyways, all that to say that it's very symbolic that the Kennedy is now on this, which is just, to me, just another symbol as well, and proof that Trump isn't a Republican. He's not political in the sense that we are. This is truly a populist movement in just under the Republican banner, and that's it. You know, but what was this over? Sparta says Reagan had a deal with the snake George Bush Sr. that the establishment made him take for VP. Oh yeah, that's true too. George Bush Sr. is one of the worst globalists there were. I mean, head of CIA, hardcore, even spoke about there being a new world order when he became president.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that man completely gone. And then obviously his son, which I was blind to all this until 10 years ago. I think most of us were. And that just shows you, like, the awakening is continued, which is amazing. And then, so to jump on Kennedy talking about the SSRIs and stuff, here's a great post from Brian Cates. It says MK Ultra never went away. They just rebranded it as that fun, cool new psychology therapy where children are given drugs, make them suggestible while a therapist programs them. They rebranded mind control via drugs and took it nationwide as therapy. I completely agree with that. Wow. And especially when it involves kids, you know. So there's that as well. And you know, I can't speak to if all of these were completely set up, although I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests that. But I can say that all of them were impacted by mental illness and pushed by drugs and by, which I talked about a lot on my live last night, the eroding of their own identities and being cheered on to do it. I mean, what is that? The damage that does to one's mind is just insane.
Yeah.
You know, so, okay. Eric, you're so talkative tonight.
Sorry, man.
Lost in thought.
Kind of.
Okay. Well, let me go through a couple other things then that I had to show. This is on the exposure side, just a big story that came out today. I showed it on my X feed, but this story right here from Wired is a dark money group. Can you see that? Here it is. Okay. A dark money group secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. So somebody got the leak that Democratic influencers online, TikTokers, Instagram people, people on X, they all got brought into like a meeting and told they'll get $8,000 a month if they all line up and push this content. And they were basically told, I read the whole story, it's long, lots of details, but they were basically told, you have 3 or 4 days to make this decision. If you do, we will fund you. If not, you're out. We won't like listen to it, but and then they said, which is kind of amazing, this came out, but that you're not allowed to talk about it. They made them sign NDAs and stuff, and somebody leaked it anyways. But I constantly in my show have been calling out how fake the influencer world is. Well, here's just more proof to that, guys. And this story is the 27th, so that's yesterday. So this just came out.
96,000 a year.
Yeah.
To push propaganda.
Push
That's
propaganda.
crazy.
And imagine that if you're a 22-year-old or, a 30-year-old who has been struggling to find work, that's very enticing. And that's just for their content. They might be working another job. So yeah, basically $100,000 a year. And just talk about Democratic stuff. But it was crazy in here. They had to it says the control of this group is so much that if they want to have a guest on, they had to run it by the group first, even if it's a Democrat. So they are making sure that, yes, I'm not going to go through it because it's so long, but I did post on X if anybody wants to read it. But yeah, it's crazy. But you can see right here, initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it secret and agree to restrictions on their content. So just it's crazy when you think these
selling
people
your
are
soul
big.
to the devil right there.
Exactly. And now listen, I'm not exonerating. There's a lot of people on the right who do this too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
They have been pushed up by super PACs, by political organizations to promote, especially when you see hardcore right-winger types, conservative types who are always undermining Trump or something like that, who are kind of like, oh yeah, we're conservative, and they can't disagree with him on the border or something, but they'll always find a way to be like, but I don't like how he's doing it. They're always planting seeds of doubt.
Yeah.
Those people some of them are true believers. Don't get me wrong. It's okay to have disagreements, but many of them are not. And you wonder how, listen, you guys have been following my channel. I've been doing the political stuff now for almost 2 years. Been doing this channel for 2.5 years. Okay. I have about 5,700 subscribers and about 1,500 to 2,000 people watch my videos each time I put them out. Get over 100 people live. That's more than a lot of people who have 70,000 followers. Okay. They can't get 50 people to show up for a live show. So I have a very engaged audience. You guys you've been here this whole time. You see how slow I grow. Well, that's because I don't take money from anybody. I don't advertise. I don't push. I don't buy bots to pad my stats. I don't do any of that. And yet I have a very loyal audience. As it grows, and that's with the shadow bans I deal with, everything. And so my growth is slow, but it's strong. I have high engagement, and this is a proof that most people who show up on the scene, cough, cough, Ian Carroll, who go from 1,000 people to 500,000 people watching them, and they're on Rogan within 6 months. That's not organic, folks. That doesn't just happen.
I was going to say, I bet if you take this money, there's going to be an apparatus behind you to push you out there.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ways to do it. And I'm just more and more, guys. I just want you to see this and listen. If you have the money and you want to build up your show, you want to advertise yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me. If I could afford to put out, $1,000 a month to just to get more reach out there, I would do it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a business. Okay. There's nothing wrong with business. I have no problem with that. My problem is they lie about how they grow. If they were disclosing it, were sponsored, blah, 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 nothing wrong with any of that. Okay. And some people do that. They're open about it. Others, once in a blue moon, somebody has gone viral with a couple things. And so that's how they become popular, but that's almost always entertainment. It's very rare for a political video to go viral unless you have a bombshell story. So all that to say, just more and more exposure. But to me, this also shows how much more desperate they're getting. They've been trying, sure. They can't.
Does it say who's funding this?
Let let's see.
Because I know the Democrat Party is pretty much bankrupt right now.
It says it calls from something called Chorus, a non-profit arm of a liberal influencer marketing program. But I guarantee you that this is probably run or sanctioned by like the DNC itself, or at least somebody on their side.
I wonder where the money's coming from, because they're bankrupt.
Well, they are, but so $100,000 a year. Say they sign 30 influencers to this, maybe let's say 100. So what is that? 100 times $100,000. That's 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's not much to a billionaire who wants to push, democratic stuff. That's not much to a George Soros or a Reid Hoffman or a Bill Gates.
Yeah,
so
they don't even care about their money.
You can buy a lot for a little by comparison. So the
problem is that nobody watches these dumb shows anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always like to pick on David Pakman, who's like one of the biggest liberal influencers. He has like millions of followers and he can't get 100,000 views on most of his shows. That's like 1 out of every 50 subscribers watches his shows. It's crazy. That's just a proof that they're run by bots. But so all this keeps coming out and which is to me very exciting. And then we just have so many other things that are exciting. Like they released these numbers today that we're up to 350,000 illegals deported. And that's not counting those who are also self-deporting, which my guess was we were at 1.6 million about a month ago. We probably crossed 2 million, maybe 2.5 million at this point. But this is really ramping up, which is exciting. We've talked about the reasons. This is really good.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. And then I just have so much hope because I see stuff like this, like the values being posted by the people in our administration. I mean, here's Jen Psaki saying the liberal line, prayer is not enough. Prayer doesn't end school shootings. So she's running their narrative like all the others did that we've seen. But then JD Vance responds, we pray because our hearts are broken. We pray because we know God listens. We pray because we know God works in mysterious ways and can inspire us to further action. Why do you feel the need to attack other people for praying when kids were just killed praying? I mean, that's powerful. And that comes from our vice president. This is calling it out. In the Bush administration, he was always touted as this big Christian and prayerful man and stuff. If they had been saying this stuff on President Bush's watch, you know what he would have done? He wouldn't have addressed it directly. He would have said something like, I know people on the other side, they have disagreements with this and I understand that, but this, but we feel, he would have been like nice and said something really nice in Christianese, but he would not have called it out. Whereas JD Vance goes direct to it with a bold statement of faith. Yeah.
Coming from the government, that's very powerful.
It's huge. And it tells me that this is authentic. A stooge doesn't talk like this. I'm sorry. They just don't, and look, I mean, it's so much more than that too. Like our Homeland Security, this is the DHS. They're basically quoting scripture, pray without ceasing.
Wow.
That's the official government posting that. So, it's like people want to say, keep church and state separate. Screw that. I want all the faith in my government. I am no longer playing that game. I'm just not. I want to see a fully Christian theocratic government. And it doesn't mean I want to take away anybody's rights. I mean, if you're mentally ill, you're going to an asylum if it's up to me, but you're free not to agree with it, but you're going to have to live under it. And
think of how far we've come. I never thought I would hear pray without ceasing from the government.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And it's a huge white pill. And then we have, right here, I just want to show JD again. I love President Trump. You guys know that, obviously. But man, I'm so excited for our future with this man as well.
You are the praying type. I would ask you to join me in prayer. I'm just going to say a prayer for the two little kids who lost their lives yesterday. And this is a prayer we say a lot in my church, and I've always found it very meaningful. It's very short. But eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen. Thank you all. Now with that,
we're a praying country again.
He's Catholic?
He's Catholic, yeah. It's powerful stuff, though. We're a praying country again, you know. And listen, you don't have to be Catholic to cross yourself. By the way, I grew up crossing myself as an Episcopalian, and yes, Anglicans cross themselves, Episcopalians. I think Lutherans do. So there's quite a few that do, but yes, it is. Catholics are known for it the most. But like I said, I don't care if you agree with us, you know, but we need to be in charge.
Yeah.
And apparently it's kind of already going that way. Look at this. Gallup's poll today. % of Americans satisfied with the way things are going. Democrats polled at 0%. That is so funny to me. 76% of Republicans are happy where we're going, but 0% is incredible.
That's a vote of confidence.
That just tells you, like, we are a country now where there's nothing in common between the two sides. No. When I say nothing in common, I mean ideologically. I don't mean that we can't share a beer together and go to a sports game and, you know, have some laughs. Obviously that's different. That's human. Many of, like, if the Democrats voters, if there's, say, 40% of our country, I would say a good 25 to 30% of those are people who you can actually coexist with. And we could find some common ground, even if it's not in politics. But there's that 10%, 10 to 15% who have just lost their minds. And they're along with the crazy cabal types. And we might have to be okay with locking them all up in the loony bin. I don't know. I'm being funny, but some of them.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny how they had to make a point to tell us that 0 is the lowest possible number.
Right?
Thanks, guys.
Well, like the lowest average. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Like, guys. How could it have been lower? Of course, it's the lowest ever.
You can see how partisan, and this cracks me up though too. You know, they say like we're the most partisan ever, and there's some truth to that. I mean, because it did hit 0, but if you go back to even 2008, 2009, like this, the Republicans were low, the Democrats were all the way low, but you have some wide spreads here.
Yeah.
And so there's always been partisanship, but you can see that the biggest spreads really did start with Trump. And it's not because of politics. It's because of exposure. It is. It's because there's one side has gone full in on just, I don't even know the right word for it, but it's like a culture of death, a culture of amorality, a culture of godlessness, a culture of worshiping the state as fixing all your problems, culture with no responsibility, a culture of entitlement. They've gone all in. And Trump exposed that, and he forced everybody to pick a side. And it's just really interesting how it's all playing out.
He's so brilliant at putting those issues in front of the American people and forcing the opposition to go, you know, double down. And then people see what they're really about, and people don't like it.
Exactly. LMI is getting really excited about the Catholic part. LMI, I'm not speaking specifically about Catholicism. Okay. You guys don't have a stranglehold on Christianity, but I respect Catholics. I do. And I'm not Catholic myself, but I am a Christian, and I do believe in the Bible. And I believe, I think we'd agree on 97% of things. But you know, the founding fathers, when they wrote into the Bill of Rights, freedom of religion, they wrote it in because to them, religion meant denomination. So it was whether you're Catholic, Lutheran, Protestant, Methodist, Quaker, that's fine. They were like, we can all coexist because we all worship the same God. And that's what we need. We need Christians in charge. That's what I mean by that. I don't, as long as they're Christian and true Christians, I'm fine with it. I obviously JD Vance, I'm gonna run to the polls to vote for him, and he's Catholic, so I don't care. And if he was Episcopalian and just a true believer, I wouldn't care. I would still run to it. I just need people who have real faith, and that's what I want to see.
We need the Christians in charge. I got to shout out Donna. Hey Donna, how you doing?
Donna, what's going on? Roger, I don't know David Clark. I'm not sure which one that is. Uncle Andy says it's very difficult to interact or form friendships with the left now they're that deranged. Well, I do agree with you on that. It is difficult. And this is what saddens me, honestly. I grew up in California. I was always a conservative, always a Christian, and therefore always voted Republican. My parents were Republican. But I grew up in California, so I was around liberals all the time. And you know what? We were all friends. And we all got along great. We play video games together. We play basketball together. We watch football together, go to the lake together. We got along great. And the only time we ever argued was over politics, but it never hurt our friendships. And then that all changed with Trump. And I'm not the one who changed, because I would have stayed friends with them, but they started not contacting me. Some of them outright rejected me and wrote me about why they had to. I lost friends of 20 plus years. So yes, there's a sickness over there now. But my point is that all those things we still had in common, we still probably have those in common. And my hope is that one day they come back to common sense when things slow down, and we truly have broken the sickness at the top of the Democratic Party. My hope is that causes enough awakening where even if we have disagreements on gun control or how big the government should be, that we can actually still exist together. But in a war, that doesn't happen. And in the Revolutionary War, most people don't know that only 30% of Americans were in favor of fighting Britain.
Yeah.
70% of Americans either wanted to completely sit out of it or wanted to remain loyal to Britain. But that 30% was enough. That was enough.
Yeah. And it was actually it was the Christian pastors who led the revolution, but they would preach on Sundays about politics. And the British, when they came to fight, they would first go into the churches. They call them the Black Robe Regiment, because the pastors are so influential and they really caused the creation of this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what it also taught us is that it only takes 30% of true believers to completely change the world, and make a country. And that's what I think MAGA is doing right now. But just like those founding fathers, we cannot stop until the job's finished. And then what happened? That other 70% came along and formed in line. And I believe that's, to some extent what's going to happen now. If we win this. John Ross. Go ahead.
Real quick. Most people that vote Democrat, they're not the crazies.
Yes, not at all.
They're the people who have always done it. They believe that the Republican Party is the party of the rich and Democrats of the common people. And, the thing is, like, once the stranglehold of the mainstream media gets broken, we're going to have a whole bunch of people flooding into MAGA that have been voting Democrat.
Yeah, I think you're right. I actually think you're right. But we have to just keep our foot on the gas and keep exposing stuff. John Ross, I see your comments. I think that's very interesting theory. I would disagree with it. I've done a whole teaching, a massive teaching, which is available on my channel. If you go to the playlist on the Bible, where I'll break down everything I believe about that. But I definitely don't have time to go into it tonight, but it's an interesting theory. And maybe someday we could discuss why you think that. But that is definitely interesting. So anyways, Eric, on that note, but I just want to end on the fact that we're winning, guys. And the exposure is part of, I guess what I'd say is it's part of the process, but also the pain of achieving a victory. I think of like when the Americans had won World War II, and then afterwards, when they were cleaning up and going through, that's when they discovered the internment camps and what happened during the Holocaust, and how evil the Germans like had gotten as under the Hitler regime, the Nazis. When you win and you're winning, their exposure comes and cleanup comes, and it gets really ugly, and you actually start seeing what you were really up against. And that's kind of like, we're not all the way there yet. We're still finishing the battles, but we're getting closer every day. And the thing is like, we can't forget we are fully in charge right now. We have the best people running the show, whether it's Trump, RFK Jr., and his administration. We have people who literally see the world like almost all of us do, and are actually, they know way more than we do, and they have a plan and they're carrying it out. I trust that completely, and I feel like that trust is validated more every day. But we are winning, and so it's not time to black pill, but it does mean we're going to have to experience more before it's over. Just because there's so much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the adults are in charge.
That's right. It feels good. So good. That part feels good.
So good. So good.
Yeah. Robert Krapke says, I had a beautiful girlfriend when I lived in Austin. She reached out when she saw me on Facebook. She said, "Oh my God, what happened? You were liberal when we dated." I said, "I guess I grew up." I love it. Or you woke up. There's another way to say it. Anyways, guys, love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Eric would be really sad if you don't hit the like on the way out. So please make sure you do that. I would be so sad. He'd be so sad.
Hit it right now.
But glad Eric could join us. I do like doing these more often. Fortunately, my schedule makes it tough to get guests and all other reasons. But you guys are the best. Thank you to the members for all the support. I'm going to be following the news very closely this weekend. I will be gone next week on a family vacation that's long overdue, 5 years overdue. But I'm going to try to do a couple lives this weekend, knowing that I'll be gone. And if you're a member, I might go live a couple small lives on Patreon while I'm gone. So members might see me a little bit. But you guys are the best. We're winning. Keep praying. Praying does work, even though the left is mocking it and saying it doesn't. It truly does. And good things are coming. I truly believe that. So on that note, God bless you all. God bless our country. God bless our president. And I will see you guys all very soon. Have a great night.